Oyingbo kule shebi Adegboro Ojaba is a popular proverb with stories surrounding it so far tell the tale of a man, Adegboro, who worked as a porter in Oyingbo Market of Lagos State. After his success as a porter, it was narrated that he returned to his base, Ibadan, where he built a big house in front of the king's palace. To discover more about his story and his house at Ojaba, we went in search of Adegboro's house at Ojaba area of Ibadan, as narrated in the previous stories. When we arrived at Ojaba, residents and market traders who spoke to us revealed that he had no house there. The only Adegboro compound they know is at Idiarere Kudeti, Ibadan.
We have heard the story, and I think that story has not been confirmed by any of the surviving great-great-grandchildren of Pa Musa Abidogun or the great-grandchildren of Amuda Yusuf. I have been Mogaji for some time now, and I've lived decades in Ibadan land. Each time the reference is made to Adegboro, the direction goes to Idiarere Kudeti. I have not been invited to see that house itself. I probably will have to check, but I do not, there's no point revising or recreating the story that did not happen. It might be possible that a rich man who was known far and wide and will move from his own home to the King's Square will probably even have married from other families, will probably even have established a space for himself, like a resting place. It might just be his resting place in the period of festivity when he goes to dance and celebrate with the king at the King's Square.
Bí mo lọ ilé Adegboro wọ́n ní kẹ́ tó dókè odò ló wà tó jẹ́ tó yà kí mọ́sálásí níbi Kúdẹ̀tì. Wọ́n ní ibi mosque bó mosque wà.
So our journey continues.
Ẹjọ́ sá, ilé Adegboro là ń lọ.
Ilé Adegboro là ń lọ. Sá? Káró tó dé bíríjì yẹn.
Àmọ́ ṣé wọ́n sọ pé Ojaba ló wà kí ló tí ò sí lọ́jàba?
Ó ní wọ́n kàn sí bẹ́ẹ̀.
Lo and behold, we arrived at Adegboro compound at Idiarere Kudeti area of Ibadan, a compound composed of cluster of houses occupied by the descendants of the Adegboro clan.
àwọn máa gbọ́ sásámọ̀ sáṣẹ́ ẹ̀túndé.
Now, who is Adegboro? And what is the story behind the popular proverb that references his name?
ọmọ gbọ́yà yà mọ́mọ́ yà òkè kúlùtù ìgbọ́dá bíbọ̀ sábà yìí gbósùrù bí bàbá.
Professor of Literature and Mogaji of Adegboro Compound, Professor Aderemi Raji Oyelade drives us into the story.
My name is Aderemi Raji Oyelade. I'm a professor of literature in the Department of English, University of Ibadan. And by the grace of God, I'm the current Mogaji Adegboro of Ibadan land. Now, Mogaji Adegboro is a title that is given to the freeborn child, male, in Ibadan land and within the Adegboro clan. The Adegboro clan spread far and wide over Yoruba land, but the name Adegboro was made popular in years past during the wars of Ibadan and also in the period of migration of members of the Adegboro clan of Ibadan. Of course, Adegboro has a proverb. In fact, two proverbs related to that great name. The first, and perhaps shall we say the most popular, is the one that says, "Ẹni tí ò lè ṣe bí aláàrú l'Óyìnbó, kò lè ṣe bí Adegboro lọ́jà ọba." Meaning that he who cannot walk like a porter in Oyingbo Market, cannot strut, cannot show his elegance in the King's Square. And the King's Square in this history is the market, the King's Square of Ibadan land. And the story relates to what actually happened. It has become a legend, but it is true story of one of the great-grandsons of Adegboro himself. And the great-grandson goes by name Amuda Yesufu Ojewumi. Is the great-grandson of Baba Pa Amusan Abidogun of Adegboro fame. And this was in the early 20th century. But the original proverb from which this particular proverb is taken goes thus: "Ẹni tí ò lè ṣe bí ẹlẹ́dẹ̀ lọ́nà Ìjẹ̀bú, kò lè ṣe bí Adegboro lọ́jà ọba." I will take that again. Ẹni tí ò lè ṣe bí ẹlẹ́dẹ̀ lọ́nà Ìjẹ̀bú, kò lè ṣe bí Adegboro lọ́jà ọba. This is, and in fact, this was the original proverb before the other proverb that I made reference to earlier. But the first proverb about Oyingbo Market was made popular by our musicians, Yoruba musicians, especially Chief Ebenezer Obey and Sikiru Ayinde Barrister of late. Now, the original proverb that relates to Ono Ijebu was not referring to Ijebu as town. It was referring to the farmlands between Ibadan and Ijebu, which became part of the territory of the great warriors of Ibadan. When Pa Amusan Abidogun lived in peacetime, he had a number of villages ascribed to him, willed to him. And one of those villages include Ojuekun village. It include Hahori, it include Olorun, and itself the Abidogun village farm. And all of these village farms were along the route to Ijebu land itself. And so when Abidogun, Pa Amusan Abidogun, worked, persevered, he labored as a farmer and became rich in that effort. His riches was known far and wide. And through those riches, very few people believe that he actually worked like a farmer, just as a farmer. And anytime he returned home, he came home to the city center, he would spend his time in strutting, in showing the gallantry and the riches that God has ordained him with. And he would dance with his wives and retinue to the King's Square in Ojaba. So when Pa Balogun, Amusan, as I said, became popular, he took on the name Adegboro. Adegboro itself was the name of a masquerade that was conquered during one of those internecine wars of Yoruba land. Balogun took on the name of the masquerade and became Amusan, Olori Ogun Amusan, Balogun Adegboro. And Adegboro became both name of masquerade and the name of the patriarch of the family known as the Adegboro family till today. And so, Adegboro, Pa Balogun, and his children made popular that name not only through show of wealth, but also by dancing, almost like a pomp and pageantry, to the King's Square anytime there's any festival. But because people did not know or wanted to know how he became rich, they found later that he was a great farmer. He had many farms in present-day Oluyole local government. And Pa Balogun, through dint of hard work and perseverance, made the proverb to become so popular in the 19th century. And that proverb again was, ẹni tí ò lè ṣe bí ẹlẹ́dẹ̀ lọ́nà Ìjẹ̀bú kò lè ṣe bí Adégbọrọ̀ lọ́jà ọba. But he took one of his grandsons, of his great-grandson, Pa Amuda Yusufu, who I mentioned earlier, to reproduce the same feat, transforming from perseverance to riches of his grandfather by traveling, by leaving home, by traveling to Lagos in the early 20th century. And he worked as a potter. He worked not only as a potter, but he also worked as a butcher in Oyingbo Market. And from being a potter, he became a rich man. And of course, he also returned to Ibadan, to his origin, to the source, and would do exactly the same way that his grandfather had done. And he will go to the market, and he will dance, pomp and pageantry, and would even spray money. And so people wanted to know how Amuda Yusufu also became rich. So he acceded to the pleas of some of his friends and took them to Lagos, to Oyingbo Market, and told them, this is how I became rich. So you also have to work as a potter. You also have to work as a butcher. And when you do that, soon or later, you also become rich. Many of them could not stand the trouble of waiting so long, working hard labor as potter. They returned home. And it is the people who returned who eventually created that legend around Amuda Yusufu, the son of Ojewumi. That is this is another scion, somebody coming after the departure of Pa Musa Balogun, also now relating the manner of his great-grandfather. Abidogun, from Abidogun to Amuda Yusufu. The same story of perseverance lasted another century, but the proverb changed from ẹni tí ò lè ṣe bí ẹlẹ́dẹ̀ lọ́nà Ìjẹ̀bú. It changed to ẹni tí ò lè ṣe bí aláàárù lóyìnbó kò lè ṣe bí Adégbọrọ̀ lọ́jà ọba.
Ṣé compound wọn? Ṣé ilé àwọn dáàdi wọn?
Ilé bàbá wọn lélẹ̀.
Okay.
Ilé Mọ́gàjí Adegboro.
Ṣé bàbá tí wọ́n
ṣé gbogbo ẹni tó bá jẹ mọ́gàjì ló máa lò ní àbí ilé tiwọn.
ilé tiwọn gangan ilé tiwọn gangan èsì pé ẹni tó bá jẹ mọ́gàjì Adegboro ilé tiwọn gangan ní bíbá ẹ̀ ilé wọn gangan ní bíbá.
Adegboro was a fearless warrior, a great hunter, and a farmer of great repute. He was in Ibadan wars. He fought alongside great warlords, Ibadan warlords like Baba Akere, Orowusi, and Obadoke Latosa. These are the three that were confirmed that he fought along with. And one of the places where Amusan Abidogun arrived in Ibadan is a place called Ijaoye village. He arrived from Oyoile, that's the present day Igbo, so we can always trace my progeny, my background, my ancestry to Igbo. So Ijaoye village was the first place that Abidogun Amusan settled. Ijaoye village is in present day Oluyole local government. So he acquired virgin forest, and among his many villages then were Olorun, Abidogun. There's also Ojoekun Ahori. These were the villages. Pa Abidogun had, from history we know that he had many wives, but 4 birth children for him. His children also fought in a number of the wars of Ibadan. There is the Gbanomu War, and there is also the Kiriji War. He was also an experienced horse rider, so he was a leader of the horsemen. And so he was given the space between the King Square and the south end of Ibadan up to the Bode end, to the Kudeti area. And that is where he settled, in the city center. His first child was called Wigbire, who also had children, who had 6 children. One of the children of Wigbire was my own great-grandfather. And as I said, the son, my great-grandfather, Wigbire, fought alongside Orowusi, who later became Baale of Ibadan land, 1870 to 1871. He was also part of the Ibadan Allied Forces that survived the Kiriji War that lasted 16 years, from 1877 to 1893. So I come from a trail of great warriors. Very few Ibadan freeborn children come from families that are not warriors. But Wigbire, Ojoekun, and their forefather, that is Pa Amusan Abidogun, was known as a great warrior and a great horse rider. The extended family tree, there are many surviving children, as I said, who expanded the Abidogun Adegboro clan, who are now scattered all over Nigeria and also outside of Nigeria. Of his grandchildren, there are many. These include Ojoekun, Akala, Ojewumi, Ojetade, Ojetunde, Shokunle, and so on and so forth.
In the end, the story of Adegboro preaches perseverance as an important factor in the journey of an individual to growth and capacity building.
The essence of the 2 proverbs, the proverb about Onojebu and the proverb about Oja Oyingbo, take us into the history of the industriousness of the Adegboro clan, and also it also is a morale to let us know that in order to become famous, in order to become to even show that you are worthy, you have to persevere. Perseverance pays. Perseverance is at the heart of the story of the legend of Adegboro.